Week 1 of the NHL regular season is in the books. Matt Murray's out with an injury. Big shocker. Wonder who could have called that. But wait, I did. We're going to give you a recap on the Leafs, Sens, and the last week of the NHL hockey. Coming up in this episode, we got a couple really cool new segments. Plus, one of us has to wear our punishment from last week's bet. It's me, and it makes me sick. So I hope you all enjoy today's episode of Between the Dots podcast. Let's get it going.
For those of you who are just listening on the podcast, as I'm speaking right now, Felix is putting on a beautiful blue and white Leafs jersey. It's Johnny T, and man, does it look good. It looks way better than any Sens jersey, that's for sure. Looks good, Felix.
Every bone in my body hurts right now. The Sens really let me down.
Yeah, I think it looks good, man. Well,
Moving
for
on.
the next 45 minutes or so, you're going to be blue and white, and it looks great.
Lovely, yeah. It'll be the last time. I'm going to have a nice campfire after this, and this is going to be my fire starter. So, shout out to Owen Hinch for letting me borrow his Leafs jersey. You're never getting it back. Yeah, so that game last week, I guess we'll start there. It was Sens lost 3-2 to the Leafs. It was in Toronto. Justin Holl scored a late goal, give the Leafs a win. You got any comments on that?
I mean, the Leafs, I know we're talking about just that game, but they haven't looked very good. I mean,
They're 2-2 though.
they have a tendency to, I know, but they have a tendency to play down to their opponents. I mean, it was good to win at home, good to win the Battle of Ontario, and good to see you wearing the blue and white, so I can't really complain too much.
Yeah, well, Ottawa is half a game back right now, the Leafs, so we'll see how both our teams do this week. But yeah, that was a tough game from Ottawa's standpoint. You're just gelling with the new lines, and Claude Giroux had 2 points that game, so there were some bright spots. Forsberg too played well for Ottawa, but Leafs are a solid team, so I'll give them credit. They played well at home too, so I wish Ottawa tightened it up when they tied it up 2-2 with like 5 minutes left, and if they tightened up a little bit after that, that would have been nice, but it is what it is, and
Yeah.
I'm stuck wearing this absolutely atrocious jersey.
Yeah, it's tough when you give up a late goal, especially on the road, because you think you're getting 1 point for sure, like minimum.
Yeah.
And I know how it feels because the Leafs did it a few nights before in Montreal when they didn't get the point that they should have. So those are tough ones, especially on the road.
Yeah, that's all right, though. Speaking of on the road and speaking of playing tough games, Ottawa started the season with 2 games on the road. So for them, their first game last week was 7 p.m. on Thursday, October 13th versus Buffalo. They lost 4-1 that game. Really, this was 2-1, a 2-1 hockey game with a couple empty netters. There was sloppy coverage in our own end of that game, so no one really stood out for me that game. It was a disappointing first game. You're all excited for the first game of the year. I didn't really like the chemistry between the lines either that game, with Norris being with DeBrincat and Giroux, but Forsberg played solid, and Craig Anderson turned back the clock for Buffalo against us, and that's how that game ended. So second one was Saturday against the Leafs. We talked about that already. We don't need to get in that anymore. 7 p.m. then on Tuesday night was our home opener, and that was a great night. That was exactly what this Ottawa team needed.
The home opener, I don't watch a lot of Sens games, but I did watch that one, and just what I noticed, the first thing I noticed was the Canadian Tire Center was buzzing, and I don't remember the last time you could say that.
It was.
Alfredson. I heard before the game, standing room only. Alfie's there.
Yep.
That was awesome to see for Sens fans.
Yeah, it was what we needed, and the offense let loose a little bit to that game, and that to me was what the Sens are going to probably be like for a lot of games this year. A really good offensive team, and they give up 5 goals against, which isn't something to be proud of either. So I think they got to work on that. But, our top 2 lines were really going that game, and Shane Pinto's looking like he could be a Rookie of the Year candidate. So You can't be satisfied though with all the defensive breakdowns, but overall it was a nice night to have with like you said, Alfie back in the house, and just he is such a great senator all time, and greatest all time senator. He just embraced what being a senator meant and what that Toronto versus Ottawa rivalry was all about too. So it was a great night.
Yeah. It's good to just quickly, like I mentioned last week, I was like, if you're the Sens and you come out your home opener, you beat the Bruins, like you mentioned that you got to be tighter defensively, but those games like that with all the scoring, the fans love that. So if you're a Sens fan and you come out to that game and the Bruins win 2-0, like that's worst case scenario. Like the fact that the Sens won is great, obviously, and then the fact that there was lots of goals, lots to cheer about. It was a good game back and forth. Like the Bruins kept scoring and made it interesting, and then eventually the Sens came out on top. And no, that was a good game for Ottawa and their fans, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was solid. So would you guys had a game on last Wednesday versus Montreal, right? That was your season opener, the Leafs.
Yeah, the Leafs opened the season Wednesday, October 12th in Montreal. This was a tough game. They ended up losing 4-3. A lot of people were on Matt Murray about this game, like he wasn't very good, and I don't think he was great, obviously, but a lot of the goals that beat him, they were like perfect shots. Like the Anderson one at the end was the Leafs scored to tie it. Nylander scored to tie it with like 3 minutes left or something, or 2 minutes left, and then with less than a minute, the Habs come back the other way and score. And it was a tough game because, like we mentioned, they didn't get the point. You think you're on the road, game one. I know the Leafs should beat Montreal considering where they both finished last year, but you get that tying goal from Nylander, you think, okay, we have not played our best. We're going to get to overtime. We're going to get 1 point at least and hopefully win the overtime and get the second point. And ultimately, Jake Muzzin gets the puck and just honestly puts it right on the stick of the Montreal player who passed it over to Josh Anderson, and he rips it over Murray's glove. And
that was a bad turnover. Yeah,
it was not the way you want to start your season, and there was a lot from that game that I'm not going to get into all of it. But the Leafs, that was not the way you wanted to start. But
yeah,
luckily they came back the next night. They had their home opener the following night against the Washington Capitals. Samsonov got the start in this game after Murray started the night before. This game didn't start the greatest. The Leafs gave up 2 in the first on Samsonov, and he looked a little shaky, but luckily after that first period, there was a lot of nerves there for him playing his old team. He gave up those goals and then shut the door the rest of the night, and the Leafs ended up winning that game 3-2.
It's good Samsonov looked good, because it looks like you're going to have to rely upon him, so it's a good thing he's looking solid in there so far.
Yeah, it was, like I said, shaky at the start, but once, I think for any goalie, you play your old team, the team that didn't want you, they didn't want to re-sign you, and they drafted you high, so the fact that you come in and you shut the door against them and get a win, it's got to feel great for him. So
yeah,
that was good to get the Leafs the first win of the season. And then I'm not going to get into the Leafs and the Sens at home because we were already speaking about that, and it's the reason you're wearing that beautiful blue and white jersey, so
don't remind me.
Yeah, so that game was supposed to be Murray's game against his former team, but unfortunately he ended up getting hurt, and then now he's on LTIR. And yeah, a lot of people
saw that coming
before.
If you have been listening to the podcast, you know how I felt about Matt Murray and this Leafs goaltending going into the year, and I knew Matt Murray wasn't playing all even splitting. He's not playing 40 games this year, and that was crazy talk to think that.
These injuries are just weird though. Like in practice,
I know, man.
Like a fluke injury. Like how does? Of course, that happens to Matt Murray.
He was the exact same.
He played one game
in Ottawa. He was the exact same way, man. But plays one game, and it's like, oh, like give him another chance. Yeah, he doesn't even get a chance because he's hurt in practice. Like just the weirdest thing. This is rumor how he got hurt. It wasn't his abduction practice. He went to Tim Hortons. He went through the drive-thru. He ordered a large coffee, and Mitch Marner and Bunting were both there. They were serving him his coffee, and when they handed it to him, they handed it to his glove hand, and he didn't catch it because he couldn't catch anything with his glove hand. He just dropped it all over himself, his lower body, completely burnt himself, lower body injury, 4 weeks. That's how he's on the IR.
Anyways, we'll just finish up here. The Leafs played their fourth game of the first week on Monday, October 17th, and this is the toughest loss of all of them, I think. You play Arizona, who is not good. Like, you compare the rosters, it's honestly comical when you look at, like, Arizona's first-line center is Travis Boyd. And that team comes in, and Nick Ritchie, of course, had him last year, didn't work out. He scores the first goal. It's just, right from the start, it was not good. The Leafs power play just didn't look good. Again, you're against Arizona. Like, these are games where you'd be like, okay, we got Arizona tonight. Like, we got to go in there and we got to get a few goals. We haven't been off to the best start in terms of, like, offensively. And yeah, that was the game that Shalgren started because they didn't want Samsonov to get into too many games right off the start. But he didn't look great. Justin Hall was also not. He did not have a good game, and that just raises a lot of question marks for the Leafs going forward. Like, you lose to the teams that I'm pretty sure Montreal and Arizona were like 30th and 31st last year or something, or they were all the way at the bottom.
Yeah,
and
that's for sure.
Yeah,
lottery pick teams.
Those are tough games to lose. Like, and the one's at home. Not that it should even matter. You should win against both those teams, whether you're on the road or at home. But
hey, anybody can beat anybody on a given night. So it's a little bit of credit to Arizona, but Sheldon Keefe called out the big dogs on Toronto to that game, saying like Matthews and those guys need to step up. But it's a tough call too late in the game. You guys think you get the tying goal again, and then it's gut wrenching. And yeah, like you said, tough game, but I'm sure the Leafs will bounce back and find their stride. Like, once a guy like Matthews gets rolling, then that's when they're rolling. When those guys are rolling, that's when they're rolling. I think that's what Sheldon Keefe meant by that. He didn't mean to try to like tear those guys down. He just wants them to get going because he wants his team to get off to a good start. So
yeah, like Leafland is there's always panic in Leafland right off the start. I mean, you can see like it's tough for Matthews. He's got a goal and an assist 4 games in. Yeah. And the goal he got, he didn't even shoot the puck into the net. He tipped a Giordano shot. Yeah. And I don't know, he just hasn't looked like the Austin Matthews that we know. And I know last year he got off to a slow start, and the Leafs got off to a slow start last year as well. I believe they started like 2-4-1 or something. Like, they had a brutal start. But it's just crazy how 4 games in, you're already listening to people like Sheldon Keefe's not the coach for the Leafs. He's not going to get, and like, we're 4 games in.
Exactly. Yeah. And you've won 2 games against Ottawa and Washington. So, I agree. I don't think there's any need to panic on that or like start questioning whether you need a coaching change. Like, 4 games in after 2 losses, like, it's like, if you're no, there's still no need to panic. Like, you at least need to watch this team over 10-15 games, and Ottawa's in the same boat as well too. Like, you need to watch that team for 10-15 games before you start to discuss like a decision like that. So you gotta have faith in the guys you got and stick with them.
Yeah, so that'll wrap up the weekend for the Leafs as well as the Sens. Felix, what do you have for the week out? What's upcoming for the Sens?
Yeah, so we got 3 games this week. First one is on Thursday night, October the 20th. It's versus Washington. So you guys beat them last week, and since then they've won 2 games. So they're 2-2 right now, and we're going to be taking on them home. We're home for all 3 of these games this week, actually. The second one is at 4 p.m., matinee game against Arizona. Then, so again, one that you'd like to have, but you got to come in ready to play on that day, because you know that like any team that comes in the building's just not going to give up free points. It's the NHL. So, and then the last one is Monday night, October 24th versus Dallas, home again. So all 3 of those games, home games, and it'd be nice to just like ride the wave and win all 3. So we'll see how they do, but we're still working on putting together a complete effort, I think, on both sides of the puck. Last game we got the offense going, but we didn't really get the defense going. So Stützle's looked really good so far, and I hope he can just take off this week again and have him really lead the way for us this year, because he is a great talent. Like, the plays he makes with the puck, eyes in the back of his head, and just great plays. So anyways, we'll see what they can do this week, but looking forward to those 3 games.
Yeah, that's I just thought of a question for you in terms of like I mentioned, the buzz in the Canadian Tire Center to start the year. Do you think that's strictly because of like the DeBrincat and Giroux additions, or do you think that's just they're the young guys as well, obviously? But what do you think's the biggest reason for seeing that place getting loud like we knew it was years ago? And
yeah. I think you're right. I think it was mainly the Giroux and DeBrincat additions, but also just like those additions show that like ownership is ready to take the turn and make the next steps to like get to the playoffs. And like that's something that we haven't really had the past 3, 4, 5 years, is just an owner that's willing to spend and like be aggressive to get guys that are going to help us get to where we want to be. And so I think that fueled with, Alfredson being in the house, along with those 2 guys coming in, and Cam Talbot too in net. I know he wasn't playing, but just more evidence that suggests that owners and GMs are going to be willing to spend and willing to make deals to get us in the playoffs. I think just that buzz and having those expectations around this team this year it's a good thing, and that's going to get the crowd back into it and people back into the Canadian Tire Center.
Yeah, hopefully crowds like that keep up moving forward for the Sens.
Yeah.
As for the Leafs, the week out for the Leafs, they play Thursday, October 20th. They're home to the Dallas Stars. So when you're having trouble putting offense together against the Arizona Coyotes, I can only imagine how tough it's going to be getting offense against the Dallas Stars and a goalie like Jake Ottinger, because I'm sure a lot of you remember he almost stole a series from the Calgary Flames last year. He was phenomenal. So the Leafs got to get going soon, and hopefully they can get it going on Thursday night against the Stars.
Stars are still undefeated, aren't they?
They are, so, and yeah, I don't believe they've given up more than 3 goals, I don't think.
Yeah, so one of 4 teams left to be undefeated. So it's Philly, Carolina, shout out to the Calgary Flames too, Canadian team in there, and Dallas. So that'll be a good matchup on Thursday night.
That will, for sure. Yeah. And Saturday, October 22nd, the Leafs travel to Winnipeg, take on the Jets to start that road trip off, as well as Monday night, October 24th, they are in Vegas to take on the Golden Knights. I think road trips like this are good, especially to start the year. I know the Leafs aren't. A lot of people think they should be 4-0 with the teams they've played to start, and maybe they should be, but I think it's good to get a road trip in like this. You get all the guys together, and they could go out there and hopefully get a few wins. And then the last thing I want to mention for the week out is I'm excited to see Nick Robertson get in there, because the Leafs lines at practice today had Malkin out and Robertson in. We mentioned before that the reason why Robertson wasn't in to begin with was because of the cap issues, but when you have Murray and Jake Muzzin go on LTIR, that opens up the cap space to do that. So I mean, it's not good to have those guys go down, but for a guy like Robertson, I'm excited for him to get in there, and he's going to be playing, according to Sheldon Keefe, he's going to be playing with Nylander and Tavares. So hopefully those 3 can gel. And
I gotta ask, can I please take this Leafs jersey off? I can't even breathe right now.
No chance. It's on for the whole episode.
That was worth a shot.
I just had a quick question. You were talking about those teams that were undefeated.
Yeah.
Are any of those teams that are undefeated, do those surprise you at all, or are there any surprises in the NHL in terms of, it doesn't even have to be an undefeated team, but is there a team that has surprised you with their start?
Minnesota a little bit. They've been pretty bad to start the year. They've been giving up lots of goals. Another team that's surprised me so far is Detroit. Actually looks very solid so far. They got young rookie Soderblom. I don't know if you've seen him. He's 6'6". He's pretty noticeable on the ice, and he scored the game winner in their first game. And he's Detroit actually looks really good, and also Boston a little bit to me has been surprising. Like, a lot of people were thinking they were going to slip up this year, and because there's no Marchand until December, and all these reasons about why. And Pasternak looks hungry. Krejci's back there, and that's not good news for teams competing in the Atlantic.
No, not at all. But in terms of teams competing in the Atlantic, Ekblad goes down today for a decent amount of time, I believe. And if you take a look at the Florida Panthers D-core without Ekblad, that is, I feel like if the Panthers are going to win in the time that Ekblad's out, they're going to have to score quite a few goals, because their D-core without Ekblad, and Uyghur obviously traded in the offseason, like they are going to be struggling on the back end.
Yeah, that's not good either, because he's on my fantasy hockey team, so I mean, good if you're one of the teams that's competing in the Atlantic trying to get in, because, hopefully, one of those teams that were in the playoffs last year is going to have to slip and miss out for Ottawa to get in, or for, there to be change in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. But you sure I can't take this jersey off? All right.
Keep her on.
I guess now what we want to do, it's a new segment. It's called Connect the Dots. So in this new segment called Connect the Dots, what we're going to do is we're basically just going to read out any comments that you guys say to us, that if you've connected with us over the past week, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube, we're just going to read them out. And yeah, so it's like we said, we want to hear from you guys. We want to talk to you guys throughout the week too, and hear your opinions on things, and then answer any questions that you guys have as well. So,
and we're not going to read out. We got lots of direct messages and everything from people saying that they like the episode so far, and we appreciate that and everything. But for this segment, we're strictly just going to talk about if you have a question that you want to ask or anything like that, we're going to read those out and hopefully answer them to the best of our abilities.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the first one that was asked, it was posted on our last week video after we posted it. It was posted on Thursday night. It was a question from Zachy Tack, and he commented, he said, "How do you feel about the Habs beating the Leafs in the home opener and Sean Monahan getting his first goal with the Habs?"
That's a tough one, because I obviously don't like the fact that the Leafs lost their first game of the year, especially to the Habs. But
reminiscent of when the Habs maybe beat them in the playoffs.
Yeah, we don't have to go back that far. That's in the past. We're not talking about that. But yeah, no, it was tough to see them lose that game. Obviously, like I said, you want to win the first game of the year and get started on the right foot. But like I mentioned, it was good that Leafs had a game the next night, so you can forget about that first game right away when you play the next night. And luckily, the Leafs won the next game, so they did do that. And in terms of Monahan, I know he's not a Leaf, and we're strictly Leafs and Sens show, but you gotta feel good for a guy like Monahan to score a goal like that against the Leafs. It's not good to see for me, obviously, but Monahan was a lot of people in Calgary, at least, were thinking, I don't know if he's going to fit in here, and not sure if he's going to work with the guys we just traded for and stuff. So he ultimately gets traded to Montreal, and good for him to get going, because I don't think he had a goal for a while with the Flames in his last few games, and it was just once it goes sideways for so long, it's tough for guys to bounce back. So for him, he gets a fresh start getting to Montreal, and it was good for him to score in his first game.
Yeah, that Monahan pickup's looking solid so far. I got not much to say. I think you pretty much said it all there. So
I just wanted to add to the length of Montreal's pregame ceremony. That was like, oh my! I know it's the home opener, and I know you're new captain and everything and all that stuff, but like, come on, that was way too long.
That's funny. Maybe that was their strategy, try to put the Leafs players to sleep before the game and then come out with the adrenaline.
I guess so. Like, that was,
yeah.
Even if you're a fan, like, that was, I wonder how many beers those fans got down before the game even started with the ceremony that long.
Seriously, that's funny. I guess that's basically it for this segment this time around, but next week we're going to do this again where we just reread out your guys' comments. So, like, comment on our Instagram video, comment on our YouTube video, and we'll get back to you. You're going to have your question featured right in the next episode. So please do.
It doesn't have to be anything crazy either. Even if it's just a comment, just how good Jake looks in that blue and white, anything like that, and we'll read them out. And that goes for YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, any one of the
any one of those main platforms. But I don't care how good you say I look. I'm never putting this jersey on again, so don't worry. Yeah. Alrighty. So now we're moving into the next part of our show, which is a new segment again. This one's going to be called One-Timers. And for this, what we're going to do is we're just going to pop each other questions, and Keito's going to take a one-timer, answer it right off the hop, give like a little 30-second response, and then he's going to give me a one-timer.
Alrighty, I will start. I've got the first question for you. Who will lead the Ottawa Senators in scoring this year?
Great question. I think it's going to be Tim Stützle this year. He's already got 4 points in 3 games, and he's young. He's going to be put between good line mates, and he's in places where he can succeed. So I think Tim Stützle. Will Austin Matthews win Rocket Richard Trophy this year?
Austin Matthews will win the Rocket Richard Trophy this year. Like last year, I mentioned earlier, he got off to a slow start then as well, but I think a few more games under his belt, he'll start scoring like he did last year. Might not get 60, but he will win the Rocket Richard this year. My next question, who will be the biggest surprise, good or bad, on the Ottawa Senators D-core?
D-core. Ooh, I think good surprise, and I think Eric Brandstrom is going to be the good surprise. I think he's going to take a step forward this year. Sometimes you see defensemen take a little longer to develop, and I think that's going to be his case. He's only 23. He was a smaller guy, so and he's an offensive defenseman too, so he's got to learn the defensive side of the game before he can succeed offensively in the NHL, and I think he's going to be in a good position to do that this year. And he's already looked really good in the first few games for us. We kind of brought this up briefly earlier. Is Sheldon Keefe on the hot seat?
That's a tough question for only having 30 seconds to answer, but no, I don't think Sheldon Keefe's on the hot seat. I mean, it's the start of the year. They didn't start 4-0. They're 2-2. Sheldon Keefe is Kyle Dubas's guy. Kyle Dubas has his guys, like we know. It's whether it's players or coaches, and I think 10 games from now, if the Leafs don't do well in their next 10 games, if they lose, but it would have to be outrageous if they were to lose 9 or 8 of the next 10 games, then you could potentially start thinking about it. But as of today, no, Sheldon Keefe is not on the hot seat.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, though. I think he shouldn't be on the hot seat as well.
Who, out of all the teams last year that finished in the playoffs, who is going to take the biggest step back out of those teams? And let's stick to the Eastern Conference. We'll stay in the East.
Yeah, good question. I would say, I think Washington. They're 2-2 right now, and I had them missing the playoffs earlier this year if you watched the predictions segment. And I believe Connor Brown's out with an injury long term, and I believe somebody else just went down with an injury.
I don't think they have Backstrom.
Backstrom's out, and so I think they're going to be a little hard-pressed to keep up. We talked about Florida a little bit, too, as one of those teams that could slip up a bit. But all right, opinion question. Who would you rather have on your team? William Nylander or Drake Batherson?
William Nylander.
Yeah, I was going to say, I tried to bait you into saying Miss Drake the Snake there, but
no, William Nylander. I think a lot of people say the Leafs got guys that are overpaid and they're not worth their contract, but in terms of Nylander, first, I think in terms of what he brings to the table, he's got a very team-friendly contract. And if I don't.
Yeah, I don't.
Batherson is good. Like that's a tough question, but I do like.
Yeah,
I'm taking Nylander for sure.
Nylander gets a lot of, I think, undeserved hate. That's just my opinion. I don't mind the way he plays. Sometimes people can say he's a little soft in the corners, but I don't know if that's just hate or what it is. But like you said, for what he's paid, what he can bring to the table, he does a pretty good job.
My last question for you is, will Carey Price play another game in the NHL?
Ooh, I'm going to say yes. He will play another game in the NHL. I would like to see him play a lot more games in the NHL. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be he comes back for 1 or 2 games and calls it a career. And it was a great career. Hall of Fame goalie, 100%. No knock on him whatsoever.
And if you say, what would be the reason to play 1 or 2 more games? Just because you think he comes in, says, I'm good to go, plays the 2 games, and he just realizes he's not? Or
I think they're like a curtain call game. I think that he comes in and it's like he knows he maybe can't play 82 games or whatever it is, a full season anymore for a team, and he's coming in as a curtain call. These are my last couple games, but one last hurrah, signing off kind of thing.
That'll be tough because we both know those will be back-to-back shutouts for Carey Price.
Yeah, and they're probably going to be against the Leafs and the Sens towards the end of the year. So.
Oh, for sure. Without a doubt.
Yeah. Awesome. That was fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was very good.
That was good. All right. Our next segment that we're going to move on to, the last part of our show here today, it's going to be a new segment again called Saturday Night Special. So for this here, what we're going to do is we're just going to make combined, Kijo and I are going to tell you 3 teams that are going to be playing on Saturday night. Then all those 3 teams are going to get the win. So it's going to be a 3-leg parlay, and we got the Saturday Night Special for you.
I'll pick one, Felix will pick one, and then because Felix had to wear the Leafs jersey this entire episode, I'm going to let him pick the last 2. So the 3-leg parlay.
It doesn't matter because they're all going to be wrong anyways, but but we'll do our best.
Alrighty, so the first game for the parlay, I have the Vegas Golden Knights beating the Colorado Avalanche at home on Saturday night. I think that it'll be a high-scoring game, even though Colorado has an injury with Landeskog out now as well. But I have, like I said, Vegas beating Colorado at home on Saturday night.
I'm skeptical of that game, but the thing that I do like is that Colorado is actually on a back-to-back. So they play Friday night and they play Saturday as well. And teams they do struggle on the back-to-back. So if you're like, oh, you're crazy for taking Vegas over Colorado, just you watch. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So that's not a bad pick. I don't mind that. The one I'm going with, first game, well, I guess second game of our parlay, but first of my choices, Sens, money line over the Coyotes. They're at home against the Coyotes. Ottawa's just going to be sitting at home waiting for them all week. They got 3 home games, and this is a chance for them to catch some momentum, and I think that's going to be a good team to get it done against. So we got the Sens over the Coyotes, the Golden Knights over the Avalanche, and then let's pick this last one together.
Okay, here's one. St. Louis at Edmonton. I like Edmonton at home for that one.
I also was thinking Edmonton as well. Let's do Oilers over the Blues. That's a 4:00 game as well. It'll be 1 o'clock Pacific time in the afternoon, so a matinee classic for the Oilers, and I think Connor McDavid comes out hungry.
McDavid, Draisaitl, tough to bet against him. I like it.
Yeah. So to recap, we got the Sens over the Coyotes, we got the Oilers over the Blues, and we got the Golden Knights over the Avalanche.
Free money.
Yep. Free money. Yeah, so basically that's Saturday Night Special. We'll see how these 3 teams do. You may want to fade us just in case, but we'll be doing this every week if we hit.
And like we mentioned before, we like the interactions on social media. So if there's a game that you like, potentially, comment on the Instagram or the YouTube or the Twitter.
That's a good point you bring up, because if you guys message us throughout the week, you're going to be seeing yourself on next week's episode. So feel free to send us a message, comment on our videos, comment on our posts on Instagram and YouTube and Twitter. We're going to try to post more this week as well. Always remember to please share our videos on social media. It's a great thing for you to do that. It helps us get out there and for people to see our episodes. And also subscribe on YouTube. We really appreciate that too. And yeah, it was a lot of fun today. So it was a good time. Now I can finally take off this jersey. So that's good. I'm going to have to go have a shower as well. Full body cleanse.
Big week ahead for the Leafs. Let's go.
Big week for the Sens too. So big week for both our teams. We're right near each other in the standings. Ottawa's a half game back of the Leafs right now. And it'll be fun to see how things unfold this week. Thank you everyone again for listening, and we'll see you next week. Go Sens, go.
Go Leafs, go.